Yesterday, my body said, enough. Enough to all of the screen time of the past week, enough to all of the Zoom meetings and looking at Facebook and reading the news online and email and writing on my computer. Enough to all of it. And I woke up with a headache and sensitivity to light and spent most of the day in a darkened room away from all of my screens that have been my main source of connection with the outside world, and also the main source of my ability to be a minister right now. My body said enough, like in anger, like too much screen time. Now you have to be in the dark for a while. And I immediately then cycled into my soul's question of, oh God, am I enough? Because this has been a long week and I wasn't fully prepared to preach to you all this morning. And so the question came up to me was like, how will I be a good minister this morning if I don't have a sermon prepared, and if I can't Google for poems and readings, if I can't use my phone to scan through my notes about what I was hoping that I would preach on? Am I enough without my screens? I know that a lot of us have questions of enoughness on our minds and hearts right now. Some of you might be having the anger, enough response, anger and resentment, enough, that we're having when our bodies are feeling too cooped up or having too much screen time. I'm guessing that people who are essential workers are having much more of that enough after their 12 or 14-hour days without enough protective equipment. That anger, enough response. And I think a lot of us are having the anxiety, am I enough? Are we enough? Do we have enough response as well? Those of us who are parenting small kids and are now suddenly their teachers as well are wondering, are we teaching our kids enough during this time? Those of us who are caring for parents who are elders are wondering whether we're protecting our parents enough from the kind of wildfire spread of COVID-19 that's been taking over assisted living facilities and nursing facilities. Those of us who are still working our full-time jobs from home are wondering if we're productive enough to keep our jobs or to keep our small business afloat. And many of us who have lost our jobs are wondering whether we are enough if we're not employable at this moment. And that's not even getting into all the questions that those of us who are wrestling to keep our needs met right now, wondering whether there will be enough money for rent this month, whether there will be enough food for the table, enough for medicine and for our basic needs. So many of us are wrestling with these questions of enoughness right now, whether it's the anger enough or the anxiety, am I enough? Or whether it's just the plain exhausted, tired, enough. There are so many questions of enough right now. And I think a lot of it is because we're going through what mental health providers are telling us is a collective traumatic experience. You know, some of us have had experiences of trauma before and some of us haven't. But the whole world is essentially going through what is a collective traumatic experience right now. And we're experiencing the kind of symptoms that we are not used to on a daily basis. I know that some of us are feeling it mostly in our bodies. This is especially true for kids, but it's true for a lot of us, that we're having stomach aches or nausea, that we're wrestling with headaches or sleeplessness at night. Some of us are even feeling tightness in our chest and worrying that it might be COVID when actually it might just be stress. Our brains are stuck in fight, flight, or freeze mode and are not giving us, the rest of our bodies, enough space to do what we're used to doing together. How many of you are experiencing some of those physical symptoms, stomach aches or headaches or lack of sleep? Yeah, I know a lot of us are. Those of us who aren't feeling it in our bodies are sometimes feeling it in a difficulty with memory. Sometimes it's short-term memory. Sometimes it's general brain fog of trying to remember what it is that we are supposed to be doing at any given moment. Trying to remember to eat or take a shower. Trying to remember what our partner just told us just 5 seconds ago, or whether we have shared something with our partner or just told it to ourselves in our heads. I think a lot of us are wrestling with all different kinds of memory loss or memory lags right now. And some of us are dissociating. Some of us are feeling even more separate from one another than we normally would in this kind of a time. Some of us are dealing with intrusive thoughts that we can't get out of our minds. And some of us are just dealing with heightened sensitivity. We're finding that noises are too loud, or the silence is too quiet, or maybe it's just that tag on the back of our shirt is feeling so itchy we're going out of our minds. All of these are normal symptoms for someone who's in the middle of a traumatic experience. But it's hard when it's literally the whole world to recognize that that is part of what's happening, that our stress brains are keeping us from being able to be our normal selves right now. I know that it's hard for me to feel like I am myself in this moment, because so much of who I understand myself to be is tied up in my ability to get things done. And I don't know about you, but I am not getting things done in the way that I normally would be able to right now. Right now I'm struggling with being on top of email and paying attention to meetings and remembering where I left any kind of to-do list for myself. My worth is way too often tied up in my productivity. And right now I am not very productive. But what I'm trying to remind myself is that this is normal. This is normal. There's a meme that I have shared relatively frequently, and Facebook just reminded me the last time that I shared it was about a year ago. It's a line drawing of a coffee pot, and it says, your worth is not determined by your productivity. It's something that I regularly share on Facebook, and Facebook a couple of weeks ago reminded me that the last time I shared it was about a year ago. I know that some of you have shared that recently as well. Your worth is not determined by your productivity. That feels like an important meme to share over and over right now, and to just see and remind myself of, because I'm so focused on how little I am being productive right now. I'm thinking about one of the incredible gifts of Unitarian Universalism, of our theology and our values, that I come back to over and over again when I am wrestling with these questions of enoughness. And I come back to our first principle, which is that we affirm and promote the inherent worth and dignity of every person. We promote and affirm that worth is inherent in every person. Our worth is not determined by our productivity. It is in us always. And it was in us before. It's in us right now. It will be in us forever. It's not determined by our productivity. Our enoughness is always with us. And yet, it's hard to believe that right now. And so we share that meme again, and we come to church to hear someone else tell us what we technically know, which is that we are enough. Because sometimes we need to hear it over and over again, and we need to hear it from others and tell ourselves in order to remember that we are enough. The definition of enough is just as much as is required. As much as is required. And so I'm thinking about what is really required of us right now. Is it productivity, or is it connection? Is it perfection, or is it kindness? Is it speed, or is it patience? I think what is required of us is simply being gentle with ourselves, being patient, being able to share with one another, being kind, and finding ways to connect. And so being enough right now is just doing enough of each of those things, not doing them perfectly, just doing them enough. This past week, a little over a week, since 2 weeks ago on Wednesday to this past Wednesday or Thursday, Jews around the world and in our congregation celebrated Passover. And one of the things that happens during a Passover Seder, for those of you who haven't been to one before, is that the story of the liberation of the Jews from slavery in Egypt is told. And the word Dayenu is chanted or sung over and over again, Dayenu. The technical translation of Dayenu from Hebrew is enough to us, enough to us. And usually it's translated in English as it would have been enough. And over, people in Seders lift up the blessings that they have been given by God. If God had only liberated us from Egypt, Dayenu, it would have been enough. And Dayenu can end there. But then they lift up another blessing. If God had only given us the Torah, Dayenu, it would have been enough. If God had only given us manna to eat in the wilderness, Dayenu, that would have been enough. Shabbat, it would have been enough. And over again, each small blessing, each large blessing is lifted up. And they say over and over again, Dayenu, it would have been enough. Just that one thing would have been enough. And yet over and over again, the blessings of the holy become clear in our lives. That we find freedom, that we find liberation and rest, that we find food to eat, community to share, that we find holy stories and words and music to sustain us. And Dayenu, each one is enough. Lots of my Jewish friends and rabbi friends and colleagues are saying Dayenu during this time of the pandemic, that even if our children learn nothing more than that they are loved during this period, Dayenu, that would be enough. Even if we do nothing more than sit at home so that others may not contract this virus, Dayenu, it will be enough. Even if all we do today is eat a couple of meals, Dayenu, it would be enough. If we are able to shower today, Dayenu, it would be enough. It is fortuitous to us that Passover has come at this moment and is reminding us of Dayenu, because so many of us are wrestling with these questions of enoughness. But Dayenu, each blessing that we find right now will be enough. Each small thing that we can hold on to could be enough for right now. So if you're wrestling with enoughness, I recommend that you adopt a practice of reciting just one tiny blessing at a time and reciting to yourself, it will be enough, or Dayenu. I want to also share a poem from Wendell. This poem is called Wild Geese. It's not the Mary Oliver version of Wild Geese. It's Wendell Berry's Wild Geese, and this is how it goes. Horseback on Sunday morning, harvest over. We taste persimmon and wild grape, sharp, sweet of summer's end. In time's maze over fall fields, we name names that rest on graves. We open a persimmon seed to find the tree that stands in promise, pale in the seed's marrow. And geese appear high over us, pass, and the sky closes. Abandon, as in love or sleep, abandon, holds them on their way. Clear in the ancient faith, what we need is here. And we pray not for a new earth or heaven, but to be quiet in heart and in eye clear. What we need is here. What we need is here. I've been thinking so much about those of you who've lost jobs or are worrying about dwindling fixed incomes right now, about all of the fears of whether we will have enough to get through this time to make ends meet right now. And though we don't know what's coming, none of us know what's ahead. None of us really knows how we'll be able to make ends meet or if we will be able to make ends meet. Here's what I do know. That what we need as a human community is here. That there is enough across the human community for all of us. There is enough. And though we may not each individually have it, the possibility that lives like that seed, that persimmon seed, the possibility that lives standing in promise right now is that enough that is held across the human community could be shared equitably across that human community right now. If you don't have enough, I invite you to seek help from this congregation or one of those aid funds or one of the programs that is helping people out right now. If you find that you do have enough, or maybe that you have too much, I invite you to help this church or one of those aid funds in supporting others who don't have enough. I know that one of the things my partner and I are talking about right now is what to do with our stimulus check. Because though we are not in a great financial situation, he is a full-time student and is funding it with loans. And I'm a full-time worker, but in a nonprofit, don't make that much money. We're not in a great financial situation, but we are making enough. And what we know is that our income is probably not going to decline right now like it will for so many others, or disappear for so many others. And so we're talking about how we can use the check that we are going to receive in order to give it to people who might need it more than us. I know that some of those mutual aid funds are on the table for us, and I encourage you to think about how, if you are one of those people who isn't losing income or who has enough right now or more than enough, how you might help those who don't. We are opening a persimmon seed to find the tree that stands in promise right now. And all of the world that is ahead of us is standing in promise inside the seeds of what is happening right now. And what we can do is share now so that the world that stands in promise becomes a world of sharing the enough that is already here and will always be here amongst the human community. So my friends, whether you are feeling the enough that is the angry enough, or if you are feeling that anxious, am I enough, will I have enough, or even today if you are just feeling that exhausted enough, I hope that you are finding some support in this community or in these words and poetry and music of today. It's enough to start with just tasting one moment of peace, to find peace by one breath and then another breath and then another breath until we find a full peace that will surround us. We are in a collective traumatic experience, and none of us is the self that we are used to right now. And it is unnerving, but it is also normal for what we're going through. And even if we're experiencing memory challenges, we are enough. Even if we're having stomach aches and nausea, we are enough. Even if we're not sleeping very well at night or in brain fog during the day, we are still enough during this time. If you need a practice to help you remember the blessings that are showing up in your life right now, help you turn enough into abundance, I encourage you to think about the practice that Jews go through during Passover, of naming a blessing and saying, if that was all that it was, that would be enough. Even if all we had was this one day together, that would be enough. Even if all that we have is these four walls that hold us, that would be enough right now. And name those blessings and say that would be enough, Dayenu, over and over until you feel how rich the world of blessing is that is constantly surrounding us. What we need is here. What we need is here amongst the human community and within those tiny seeds that each one of us holds that show the promise of the world to come. So whether you need help in your day-to-day life right now, I hope that you will ask for help from people around you. And if you feel that you have more than enough and you can share with someone else, I invite you to share with someone around you or through one of these aid funds or organizations that are redistributing help right now. My friends, these are times of troubled waters. May we allow ourselves to be bridges across the water for those who need us. May we find the bridges that we need in our friends and family and communities right now if we are struggling to get across. And may each one of us know that we are inherently worthy, that we are inherently enough, and it doesn't require our productivity or our memory or our health or even our relationships for us to be enough. May it be so, and amen.
Hi, I'm Reverend Hannah Capaldi.
And I'm Reverend Abbey Tennis. We are the ministers at the First Unitarian Church of Philadelphia, where our mission is to awaken love and justice in our lives and in the world.
We're so grateful that you watched, and we hope that the sermon connected with your soul.
We also want to invite you to join us for a live worship service every Sunday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. You can always find the link to that service on our website at www.philauu.org. In these services, you'll hear words like you've just heard, and you also get a chance to greet one another, pray together, sing together, and we even hold a virtual coffee hour after services to get a chance to greet some new and old friends.
If you want to support the mission of this community and you feel moved to give, you can do so by going to the website that Reverend Abbey just mentioned. You can find that link below, or you can text 215-709-5095 and follow the prompts to give.
If someone in your life needs to hear these words today, we encourage you to share this video. And again, thank you so much for watching.
We hope to see you soon.